Hello, my name is Nikki SOLIS, and I'm here to discuss the classicism and the Greco-Roman tradition. So, I will discuss two subtopics on the Greek and Roman art. Well, first, in the Greek art, I will discuss the Hellenic period, or AKA the Golden Period, and on the Roman art, I will discuss the philosophies. So, let's proceed. But first and foremost, let's discuss Greek art. So, what is Greek art? So there are four periods of ancient Greek art, mainly the geometric, archaic, classical, and Hellenistic. So they correspond to a time frame around 900 to 300 BCE. So at this time, the artist used a wide range of mediums. They had used stone and bronze for sculpture, terracotta for vases and figurines, and different types of painting. And they also used gold and silver and bronze for coins. Let's proceed to the Hellenic or Golden Age. So at this time in the Golden Period or Classical Age of Greece, they actually ran through 500 to 300 BC. And during this period, Greece has contributed to uh, architecture, art, and philosophy that we still feel its impact to this day. And there's a certain general called Pericles where he sustained or solidified his own to hold on to power by using public funds to pay and support artists and intellectuals in uh, the Athens. So in this time, this general, Pericles, hired a lot of craftsmen to construct Athens' public structures and temples, and also provide plenty of construction jobs, and also made a lot of temples. And because of this, he had drawn different tourists from different parts of the world during this time. And the reason why he did this is so that he could gain allegiance to the Athenians and raise both his city's stature. And because of this, due to a lot of and cultural and um, artistic movement and forward to this time, Greece had become advanced to the point that they have called this as the apex or the peak of Greek civilization. So there are two types of cities at this time, and two political parties rather, which is Athens and Sparta. So these two parties had maintained its independence even though they are in the same territory. And they are actually highly dissimilar from one another because uh, the Athens were actually more on academic, which the aristocracy has always benefited on their democratic system, while the Sparta is actually a warrior-based society. They're more militaristic, and they are actually have the slave owning customs. So actually, despite their disagreements, Athens and Sparta actually came together to stop the Persian invasion. And let's proceed to its architecture. So, in the Greek architecture, this was actually used in classical times, which is the Doric and Ionic architecture. Um, because of these types of architecture, they actually has raised the bar for architectural beauty. So as you can see here in the picture, there are two types. These are the types, and let's just disregard the Corinthian. So there is the Doric and Ionic. You can see the difference between here. The Doric is much more practical and it's much more minimalistic than Ionic, and Ionic has these types of curves and uh, circular motions to have them more effect. And while we're discussing Greek architecture, it is actually impossible to overlook the Parthenon. So what is the Parthenon? So Parthenon is actually one of the most famous Greek temple and is dedicated to the goddess Athena, the goddess of war. So this is the Parthenon. During its prime, it's actually one of the greatest temples ever built for a goddess, and right now it is in ruins. So this is a symbol of a Greek architecture, and it has a lot of traits on uh, the classical architecture. So it is, first off, these are the columns serving as ornamental mooring supports. Then there is the triangular roof structure right there, and rooftop pediments where sculptures created the works of art. So these are the rooftop pediments where mini sculptures were actually put there to tell stories of Athena. So let's proceed to the sculpture. So at this time, it is actually particularly interesting time in Greek art because these sculptures back then use a lot of methods, and they have refined sculpture making and made their artwork increasingly lifelike. So they have at this time sculptures or artists used bronze and their sculptures to hold its shape well, and it has become a popular raw material for sculpting. So kind of siya. And the example here is the Apollo Belvedere. You can see here, you could actually observe how flesh-like the contouring of the sculpture right here, like, and also the drape of the cloth here looks very much real. It's like a really really white person just standing right there. So let's proceed to the painting. So here in um here in the Golden Age, the paintings were found in vases, panels, walls, and on tombs during the classical era. So the primary subjects were still life and situations and portraits. So this is one of the examples in the Great Tomb of Virginia. Actually, the Great Tomb of Virginia, when you go inside, there's a lot of paintings all throughout. So these are one of the examples of that painting. You can see here is actually um, compared to like paintings you can see during this time. It is actually really impressive and really impressive and very forward. It's like it does not look like it's been painted during the 326 BC. And actually, the Renaissance is the only era that surpasses the achievements of classical Greek painting. Because after these types of paintings or these type of skill, it had declined and it is not as impressive as this anymore. So I think that is all in the Hellenic and the Golden Age. And these are my references. And let's proceed to Roman art. So let's discuss Roman art. So Roman art, it is a visual arts made in ancient Rome and the territories of the Roman Empire. So it includes architecture, painting, sculpture, and mosaic work. Uh, Roman art during this time is their most famous types of art were actually domes and mosaics and a lot of um painting and sculptures. So the Romans were actually the first builders in the history of architecture and realized the potential of domes for the creation of large, well-defined interior spaces. So let's proceed. Now, these are the Roman art philosophies. So actually, Roman philosophy had a significant influence on art through its emphasis on aesthetic principles, moral virtues, and the pursuit of beauty. And actually, one prominent example of this is the Stoic philosophy, which I actually practice. It is an advocated development of self-control, rationality, living harmony, and nature. Quote on their the famous quote of Stoicism is "Memento Mori," which means is you are mortal, or AKA you will die. So this philosophical outlook actually influenced human Roman art and portrayed of ideas human figures about these stoic virtues. So this is the example, the stoic concept apatheia of or freedom of passion. So, inspired Roman artists to depict figures with serene expressions and composed demeanors, conveying the sense of inner tranquility and self mastery. So, if you could see different types of Roman sculptures, you could see that they do not smile, they do not process any emotions, they just like very still, very nonchalant pa in Gen Z jargons. And this actually can be observed in a certain sculpture, which is head of a Roman partition. So this is an example of it. You see how very stern he looks, very still, because it shows the stoicism, which is just that, like no emotions whatsoever. So in Roman philosophy, especially Neoplatonism, it has emphasized the pursuit of beauty as a means of attaining spiritual enlightenment. um, Neoplatonic philosophers such as Plotinus viewed beauty as an expression of divine perfection and an avenue of transcending to the material world. So, this philosophical perspective influenced various forms of Roman art, including architecture, sculpture, and paintings. And this shows the sense of sublime and eternal. So, a notable example here is the design of Roman temples, often covering elements of proportion, symmetry, harmony, and derived from Neoplatic ideals of beauty. So this is one of the great examples is the Pantheon in Rome. You can see how proportionate this looks like, and you can see how dito sa columns, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 columns here, 4 columns on the right, 4 columns on the left. So this is the main example of this philosophical perspective, which is the Neoplatonism. So furthermore, Roman philosophers like Cicero and Seneca emphasized the importance of moral education and the cultivation of virtue through literature and the arts. Their writings actually encourage artists to use their craft as medium for moral instruction and the promotion of civic values. So that is it. In summary, Roman philosophy, particularly Stoicism and Neoplatonism, exerted a profound influence in Roman art by shaping its aesthetic principles, moral content, and conceptual framework. Through the integration of philosophical needs into artistic expression, Roman artists sought to convey not only the beauty of the physical world, but also the timeless truths of the human spirit. So, I guess that is it. This is my reference on the Roman art philosophies. Once again, my name is Nikki Angela Solis, and thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something.